Chapter 21. An indictment, of sorts. After a week of misdirecting the masses, Purdy's hippodrome was listing like a drunk on a bender. The examination lacked the explosive revelations of Lovett's inquest, offering up the same 24 witnesses telling the same shop-worn stories. Since Wheeler was not permitted to speak in his own defense and his bombastic lawyer could not call any witnesses of his own, there was little fresh drama to be had, save of course for Hardy Benson's revisionist bluff and blunder. As the final witness Willie Henshaw left the stand, Cop Rosen proclaimed his case closed. There were no last-minute exclamations, no sudden aha moments. It was a disappointingly low-key climax to a taciturn prolixity in jurisprudence. After considering the evidence for all of a minute, Purdy issued a single piece of paper dripping with all the necessary legalese, official stamps, and requisite signatures. It was a remand ordering Wheeler back to the Digby jail to await his real trial before a Supreme Court justice. Yet for all its carefully affected air of importance, Purdy's order was simply legal busywork. One local paper referred to Purdy's ruling as nothing more than a temporary sentence. Formal charges against Wheeler remained unfiled. Still, to Purdy's way of thinking, it was very much in keeping with the locals' desire for British justice. Wheeler was once again bound for jail and all was right with the world. What once promised to be grand theater turned out to be merely a tease. Purdy's folly was simply a way station en route to the final destination of retribution and justice, or more to the point, the appearance of justice being done. Although Wheeler was one step closer to the gallows, the pace proved excruciatingly slow for those most affected, the victim's family, the citizens of Bear River, and the media, though not necessarily in that order. The Digby Weekly Courier laid the groundwork for the next phase of legal proceedings when it declared, "By English law a man is deserving of a fair trial and Wheeler should have such benefits accorded him so far as is right." Having grudgingly ceded Wheeler his basic rights, within reason, the Courier quickly reverted to form. The evidence points so strongly however to Wheeler's guilt that it is thought he cannot escape the conviction which would be only justice. As a fair trial requires an impartial jury, the Digby Courier was doing everything in its power to ensure that the potential pool of jurors was as jaundiced as humanly possible. Meanwhile, Wallace Purdy had done everything in his power to make his mark in the annals of time, but history would not be kind to him. The judge intended his examination to be a showcase for his legal prowess and a stepping stone in his career, although publicly the intent was to assess the case against Peter Wheeler. Purdy, however, had been unceremoniously upstaged by others, the accused, Hardy Benson, and the proceeding's true leading man, Detective Nicholas Power. All had garnered far greater and more effusive press coverage. For his pains, all Wallace Purdy earned was a stipend of $19. Although codes of professional conduct prohibited both Purdy and Power from discussing the case publicly, only Purdy heeded those ethical constraints. Power, unfettered by discretion, took countless victory laps in the press, relegating Purdy to the role of spear carrier in the drama unfolding. Accessibility equaled recognition and acclaim in the quid pro quo world of the press corps. The credit went to those willing to go on the record. In what should have been Purdy's finest hour, all eyes were on the gumshoe from Halifax, prompting the Morning Chronicle to exclaim, "Once again, Detective Power is on top." In stark contrast, the most the Yarmouth Herald could muster was a half-hearted nod to Purdy for the able manner in which he conducted the examination. What undoubtedly rankled Purdy most was that Power himself never took the stand during the exam, electing instead to try the case in the media. The detective, the uncontested master of the dangling carrot, granted interview upon interview, each full of promise and portent but signifying nothing of substance. As one reporter noted, Detective Power says he has very important evidence against Wheeler but in the interest of justice does not deem it prudent to disclose the nature of it at present. How terribly convenient, particularly since prudence had certainly never stopped Power from sharing in the past. Perhaps Power's feint toward discretion had a different motivation altogether. The detective's ceaseless quest for accolades was not vanity but rather its opposite, insecurity. Even as the press printed Power's swaggering boast that in his humble opinion never was a case more fully proven than the one he had built against Wheeler, the weak links in the detective's self-proclaimed perfect chain of evidence were showing. They included a complete lack of physical evidence tying Wheeler to the scene and a timeline that endlessly contradicted itself. Even Power's staunchest supporters in the media acknowledged that the evidence in the case is purely circumstantial. Purdy's exam served only to remind Power of a single overwhelming reality: more than 2 weeks after Annie's brutal slaying, the detective still had not conclusively put the murder weapon in Wheeler's hand, and all of Power's bravado and bluster was not enough to keep that pivotal fact hidden much longer.